So, from your book, Have a Nice Day. This night in Munich would turn out to be even more pain. Too Cold Scorpio, a brilliant high flyer, had wrestled in the evening's first match and had complained that the ropes were too loose. Unbeknownst to me, the German roadies had tightened the cables to the maximum, so there was no give on the ropes at all. And again, we sort of touched on this, but there is a translation issue, and we're not using our normal crew, and we're using a local crew, but it's apparent that no one at ringside ever communicates that note to the back, right?
No. And I only knew that Too Cold wanted them tightened up because you could see on the video that they were tightened up. And that he told me, I think there's an argument can be made that I should have tested the ropes, but I'm specifically not wanting to tip my hat that I have a spot.
Of course.
Now, whether or not people would have deduced that by me hitting the ropes, but I specifically don't do it because I don't want to tip my hat. But unbeknownst to me, the ropes are tighter, cables are tighter than I think they are going to be.
So from your book, with my head caught in the ropes, I could immediately feel the difference. Instead of the normal pain that I had long ago accepted as a consequence for this exciting move, I felt as if my neck was in a vice. I literally felt like I was going to die right there. I'm usually known as a pretty good ring general, and I had kept a calm head in some pretty bizarre conditions, but in this case, I was panicking big time.
Yeah.
I began to do what no tough guy, big cheese, blood and guts wrestler would ever under normal conditions even think of. I began screaming, and I do mean screaming, for help. Vader later took the credit for getting me out, thereby saving my life, but video evidence showed that the big SOB with his back to me was yelling at the crowd, doing his whole "who's the man" gorilla grunting routine. So, chat me up. You find yourself going over the top rope, you've got your head in this vice, Vader's hot dogging, thinking it's just part of the thing. Yeah. What's going on with the referee? Does the referee recognize you're in trouble?
Referee, this is a surreal situation we're in. Referee does not speak English because Nick Patrick had been sent home, and I think Pee Wee had been sent home. One due to a death in the family, one due to a knee injury. I can't remember which one was which. And so they replaced, emergency replacement, French referee speaks no English. So I don't know what I can't remember the referees trying to help us. I do know that when I make my way out of the ring and I get back in, then Leon, seeing that I'm bleeding badly, calls a comeback. To his credit, right? That's a great idea. Bleeding guy, call a comeback. And so I block a punch, I throw a punch, and it's there you can see that thing fall off the side of my head. So it's still connected when I was on the mat, even though the blood was streaming down. And this is something I talked about in my Hall of Fame induction speech. I said, well, I didn't say this part, but I knew from history, as we talked about a little while ago,
doesn't bleed a lot.
Doesn't bleed. So now when this thing is just pitter-pattering on the blue mats, and now my brain goes to that place where I start thinking about how similar Ricky the Dragon Steamboat's entrance music sounds to Listen to the Rhythm of the Falling Rain, because there's that pitter-patter, and one goes, listen to the rhythm of the falling rain, and the other one goes, loves his wife and kids and does the best he can, Ricky Steamboat, which I will argue is the most badass entrance music. With all due respect to The Undertaker, brother, loves his wife and kids. That's what I'm thinking on the ring apron. I roll back in. Leon calls the comeback. Boom, I throw the punch. Off it goes. So now the French referee picks it up. Doesn't know how. I guess he could have showed it to us, but we kept wrestling. I'd love to say we wrestled for another 5 or 6 minutes. It was really like another 80 seconds, which is still commendable.
Yeah.
And by the time the match ends, the referee's already given it to Gary Michael Capetta, the ring announcer. Gary can be seen, and this is where I don't know if he's actually sprinting with it at arm's length. He's definitely moving quickly. And he hands that ear, he hands it to the Nature Boy. He says, I have Mick Foley's ear. I have Cactus Jack's ear. What should I do with it? And it was Rick who said we need to put it in a bag of ice. So I asked Gary after the fact, what did it look like? He said, it looked like a piece of uncooked chicken with tape on it. So in my defense, like, I taped it up every time I was going to do that move, both ears. And I guess I was wrong when I said I never had the stitches in the left ear, because in my book I said I did. Always more severe on the right-hand side, though.
So you go into the match with tape on your ears.
Yeah, I'm taped up behind both ears.
But you don't think that would tip the hand as much as running the ropes?
I had the long hair.
So nobody can see.
Very few people are going to see it. And besides, we're so used to seeing tape on people in a variety of places. I don't think tape on the ear is going to tip it at all. And plus, with the long Foley hair, nobody's going to see it anyway.
Yeah. So this is the same day where Flair says, "You're not getting over as a baby face. We need to make you a heel." And then he sees your uncooked chicken with tape on it. It is pretty amazing in hindsight to think that they didn't immediately try to turn that into a magazine article. It should have been on the cover of the magazine.
First of all, WCW gave me the slide. They said we can never print this. And yet, for their one of their pay-per-views where they had the old-timers back, Slamboree, almost every visual of those old-timers is them bleeding.
Yes.
And that's where I said, okay, so the new blood, no good. If it's 20 years or older, it was vintage blood, that's okay. But they did. They handed it back to me and said, you can do whatever you want with it. We will never print this. And that's like a...
Do you still have it?
Well, yeah, because we used it for...
you should get that framed, hang that on the wall.
Well, here's the thing about that photo is it is in the Have a Nice Day book. When I started doing horror conventions, like in 2003, I would get people buying that photo who were not even wrestling fans just because it was cool. And as, I'm trying to think of the guy's now, Andrew Benarski, who... was Leatherface in the Texas Chainsaw remake. He comes looking over at a show called Monster Mania in like 2003. He's looking at the tables. He goes, "Bro, you know you're the only guy with real blood in his photos." And I went, "Yeah, I guess I am."
How about that?
Yeah, I guess I am.
It's a cool little footnote.
Yeah, it's a cool little footnote. But it was just an exercise in frustration, the whole thing, from having my, I'm getting my hopes up that they'll utilize the German I've been working on, and that doesn't happen. Then I'm told that the babyface run that I believe is going well, no matter what that rating said, because I used to submit things to WCW, showing a tail of ratings, because a pattern is much better than a blip.
Yes.
And I would show, like, for example, during this 6-week run that I had, we did a 6-week angle with me and Dustin Rhodes just on TV. And that when I put us on Sunday night's main event, that during the course of those 6 weeks, the ratings slowly but steadily were ticking up. And I thought that was about as intricate as any of their talent was going to get in pitching why they should... several thousand words would go into these things, but then no one wants to read anything that's several thousand words. So I would stick up for why I thought I deserved, if you came out of your negotiation with the same thing you had, that was a victory.
Right.
Because they were looking to cut money.
Cut.
And like, as I, said a couple weeks ago, the conundrum you were in is you couldn't be a top guy unless you made top guy money. You couldn't make top guy money unless you were a top guy. So even though we talked about the potential for a Cactus Jack Hulk program, probably Hulk was going to be in the ring.
Will Flair right away.
He was only going to be working with those guys who were making the top money because those were the top stars.
So the Observer would have this to say of your incident that night. The pressure of the tightened cables was such that his ear was torn completely off, and his left ear was split badly, needing more than a dozen stitches to close the cut. Ring announcer Gary Capetta took the right ear and iced it. However, doctors were only able to save about 1/3 to half of the lower part of the right ear. Jack actually continued the match for another 2 minutes or so, making a big comeback before doing the planned job, which tickles me, the phrasing, the planned job. Did Vader know that the ear came off, or when did you know? When did he know?
Leon, I don't know if he knew the ear came off. He knew I was injured.
But he saw the blood, yeah.
Yeah, saw the blood, because the ear wasn't off yet. And I don't know if he saw the ear fall. The referee certainly did. But that was like almost in his ring general DNA to take advantage of something like that. Hey, that's going to be a good pop. Set up a little bit of a comeback, and then we went home right after that. A minute and 5 seconds later, which was probably about how much time we would have done anyway. And then once Leon got his armpit off me, because he did cover me with his armpit, it wasn't pleasant. Especially in the days when everyone wore hot stuff. That was a tough time for your senses. I reached up. Keep in mind, I've had my ear split, at least a dozen times in the past. And I thought, okay, if it was bleeding this much, it must be pretty bad. And then I was like, whoa. There was a little wave of panic, but at the same time, there's a rush of adrenaline, which happens, Injuries give you a heightened sense of awareness some of the time, and it kicks in that fight or flight reflex. So when I get back to the dressing room, I'm actually like wired. Even in the photo that was taken immediately after, I have a little gleam in my eye. I think the gleam in my eye is there partially because I realize this is a booker's dream.
This is money.
Like, all right, maybe they didn't use the German, but who is going to ignore this? You can't miss this. And I just thought, me and Leon cutting promos about the loss of an ear. I
took your hearing, now I'm going to take your sight. And blah, blah,
it's
yeah.
going to be big time. And I don't think the powers that be wanted an angle that was big time.
At any point when you're in the back, and I know this sounds silly in hindsight, but does part of you think, can they reconstruct my ear?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I was thinking it could be done because in the news at that time was that John Wayne Bobbitt fellow.
Oh, yeah.
Who had a different body part sewn back on. What I didn't realize is that...
Think Vader took that one off too? Or maybe not.
No. There was one time Ron Simmons came darn close to having something like that with the ropes. There was a move in the ropes. I was right there, WCW. I don't think Ron minds me talking about this unique injury. And then when he takes his supporter off, it's like this... it's like this huge slice going around the circumference. And Ron was... I don't want to... I want to avoid sounding like I'm imitating Ron, because no one's Ron except Ron, but his big concern was, how am I going to explain this to my wife?
Yeah. Yeah, there's no way to explain that, and it sounds plausible.
So he suffered a severe penile injury, and the only thing he was worried about was how do you explain the unexplainable, whereas I suffer this severe injury, and I was kind of on I thought they could reconnect it. B, there's part of me that's proud of having finished that match. And C, how in the world are they going to deny this money-making device? I didn't know until 2013, after my Hall of Fame induction speech. I'm glad I went first, because if I'd gone in the middle or at the end, I would have looked out and my family would have been gone, because my son Mickey is on the spectrum. He can't handle crowds that long. So I was very thankful to go on first. I was able to enjoy the rest of the show. And I did not know that Booker and his brother Stevie Ray were on their first tour with WCW. And he said, I walk in and I said, I think I just lost my fucking ear. Bang, bang. And so when I heard that, I was like, well, first of all, that is an appropriate place to drop your rare F-bomb,
yes,
right?
Yes.
And the thing about the bang bang is like, man, I had the commitment, even when injured, to get that catchphrase in front of the boys. And not only did I get it in front of the boys, but later on, 2005, so we're talking in 2000, 11 years later, 2005, I'm dying to get Adam West to sign a photo. But I've heard that he won't sign things that Burt Ward, Robin, has signed. They're separated, not just different tables, but there's like a wall in between them. And but I saw people coming. I thought, when's the next chance? This guy was super over with my with me and my brother, with my older kids, now my younger kids. I'm going to give it a try. And I brought up the book. Somebody had the book, so I could show him that in 1990. Let me get my 90s right. In 96, that my kids went trick-or-treating, and not with the current black back, man, but the blue and gray, the way it was meant to be. Adam West, damn it. And that's what I wanted to show him. And when I walk up there, his manager goes, "Whoa, Way, you sold quite a few of these, didn't you?" I said, "Yeah, it did do well." And now Adam West grabs the book, not paying attention to the part that I had, earmarked with him in it, and he goes, "I think I lost my fucking ear." Bang, bang. And he looks at me and goes, "You've got a very unique writing style. You capture the listener right away." So who knew in that dressing room in Munich that I would be making an impression on Adam West?
That's awesome.
11 years later, right?
It's too bad you didn't have the bat belt that night. Maybe you could have just sewed it back on.